Good evening, everyone. This week's parsha is Parshas Eikev, Tavshin Pei Beis. So we will discuss a famous pasuk, a famous verse, which is in Perek Ches, chapter 8, pasuk Yud, verse 10. V'achalta v'savata, you shall eat, you shall be satisfied. Uve'rachtas Hashem Elokecha, you shall bless Hashem your God. Al ha'aretz ha'toiva, for the good land, asher nasan lach, that he has given you. So this is the source of the mitzvah of Berchas Hamazon, of what we call benching, which means the grace after meals, the blessings that we give to Hashem after we finish a meal, referred to as bercha, which we call Berchas Hamazon, the blessing over the food, or the blessing over the sustenance. And what's interesting to note is that if the Torah tells us you should eat and you shall bless, the Torah tells you should bless, it's a commandment, it's a mitzvah, it's a Torah obligation. And the mitzvah says you shall bless Hashem your God for the good land that he has given you. Now, Berchas Hamazon is made up of 4 blessings. The first blessing ends Baruch Atah Hashem Hazon Es Hakol. The second blessing ends Baruch Atah Hashem Al Haaretz V'Al Hamazon. The third blessing ends with Bonei Barach Hamab Yushalayim Amen, he who builds Jerusalem with his mercy. Those 3 blessings are considered Torah obligations. The fourth blessing that we say, where we say the fourth blessing of the bench of Berchas Hamazon is rabbinic obligation. And the Talmud in Brachas, this is on Daf Pei Ches Amud Beis 48b. Talmud says, Tana Rabbanan, the sages taught, how do we know that the blessings we say after a meal are from the Torah? Shenemar, it states, V'achalta v'savata uve'achta. You shall eat, you shall be satisfied, and you shall bless. Zu berchas hazon. When this part of the verse says, and you shall bless, it's referring to the first blessing, which starts off, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Hazon es ha'olam kol b'tuvo, who sustains the earth with his goodness. That's the first blessing. Al ha'aretz hatova, when it says you shall bless for the good land, zu berchas ha'aretz, this is the blessing over the land. That's the second blessing. The second blessing begins, Hashem Elokeinu, we give you thanks, Hashem our God, al shanchalta l'avoseinu, that you gave to our ancestors as an inheritance, Eretz Chemda Tova Urachava, a desirable, good, and wide and bountiful land. And the blessing concludes, Baruch Atah Hashem Al Haaretz V'Al Hamazon. Blessed are you, Hashem, for the land and for the food. So the second blessing is called Berchas Haaretz, the blessing over the land. And the third blessing starts, Rachim Na Hashem Elokeinu Al Yisrael Amecha. God have mercy on Yisrael, your nation, and over Jerusalem, your city, Mishkan Kvedecha, and for Zion, the area where the temple stood, the dwelling place of your honor. And it ends off, Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Bonei Barach Hamav Yushalayim Amen, who builds with his mercy Jerusalem. Okay, so we have here an obligation. The second blessing of the Berchas Hamazon is the blessing over the land. Now, there is also a statement from the Talmud, a little further on, that states the following. And that is, Mi shaloi amar, let me make sure I have this right. Right. The Talmud says, Kol shaloi amar eretz chemda toivo rachav berchas haaretz. Someone who doesn't say the following words, Eretz chemda toivo urachava, the land that is desirous, good, and bountiful. Beberchas haaretz, you don't say those 3 words in the second blessing, lo yatsi dei chavasa, you have not fulfilled your obligation. You have not fulfilled your obligation, that second part of that second blessing of this mitzvah of Berchas Hamazon. If you don't state those words, then you have not fulfilled your obligation. You'd have to say the blessing over again. So the question is, clearly, the Torah tells us to thank Hashem for the land. Okay, so we thank him for the land. Why do we have to call the land? Why is it obligatory to have to call the land Eretz Chemda Tova Urachava, a land that is desirous, good, and bountiful. Why do we have to say that? Why is that so important to the point that we say that without saying those words, you're not going to fulfill your obligation? So the Chassam Sofer comments like this. He says that from a certain perspective, Hashem has created us with a nature that we're needy. We need things. There's certain things that we need to be able to live as human beings. And at a certain level, we can call it, this is what Hashem should be doing. If he created us and he created us with needs, then he should take care of those needs. And this is what we say he does. Now, so therefore, right. But let's say, so yes, we have certain needs, and Hashem, if he created us and he created us with needs, he should take care of it. But he could take care of those needs on a level of, here's your basic needs, here's what you need, here's what you get. He could give us just exactly what we would need. He wouldn't have to be doing it in a generous way. He wouldn't have to do it in a bountiful way. He wouldn't have to do it in a high quality way. If the point is we have needs, and otherwise we can't survive or function, Hashem says, okay, here's your needs. But when he gives us more than our needs, he gives us comfort. He gives us things in a plentiful manner. So then already our gratitude has to be, we have to have a tremendous amount of gratitude for that, because that's all extra. He doesn't, it's hard to say the words, he has to. But again, from the point of creating us with needs and therefore taking care of those needs, the needs, okay, this is what he should be doing. At the same time, once he does more, then clearly we should be full of gratitude for that, because that doesn't have to be. To survive, to function, we could have just basics. But when we're given things in a plentiful manner, when Hashem goes the extra step, then that's something we have to be very grateful for. Therefore, the Chassam Sofer says that were we to only thank Hashem for the land, then that would imply that we're saying, thank you, Hashem, for doing what you really should be doing anyway. No, it makes sense. We could thank him for that. It's not like he owes us anything. It's not like he's obligated, essentially. There are times that he doesn't give people their needs. But at the same time, it would look like all we're doing is just saying, thank you, Hashem, for doing what you should be doing. But once we say, thank you, Hashem, al aretz tova, aretz chemda, tova urachava, a desirous, a good, a plentiful land, a bountiful land, that already shows that we recognize Hashem's kindness with us and the special kindness that he has with us, that he gives us more than just our needs. And that level of more than just our needs can manifest itself in many different ways, at many different levels. But we recognize that. We recognize that when he gave us the land of Israel, he didn't just give us a land to live in. He gave us a very special land, a land that flows with milk and honey, a land that is precious. It's a cherished land. It's a good land. It's a bountiful land. It's a plentiful land. He didn't just give us any land just to live. He gave us a very special land. Chassam Sofer doesn't mention this, but he gave us the land that has the closest connection to God. Hashem gave us something very special in a physical sense and in a spiritual sense. And that's what we thank Hashem for. That's what we make sure to thank Hashem for. We have to make sure in our blessing that we're not just blessing him in a way that could imply, you're just, thanks for doing what you're supposed to be doing anyway. But rather, we recognize how kind you've been, how good you've been to us, what you've given us, how extra special it is that you've given us. And that's why we have to make sure to say, not just thank Hashem for the land, but Eretz Chemda Tova Urachava, on a precious, good and bountiful land, where we recognize truly the gift in all its levels that Hashem has given us. Now, Rabbi Yisrael Reisman of Brooklyn, New York, he says this a little bit differently. He adds a little bit something more. He adds it from a little bit of a different angle. I mean, it's the same idea, just with a little bit of another twist. There is a concept that we find that when you want to express love, you don't just express love by doing what you have to do. Doing what you have to do doesn't express love. It says, I do what I have to do. Once you go an extra step, once you do more, that already means that there's something more going on here. That already shows that this is something special to you. This is something that you love. If the Rebbeinu Shalom just gives us what we need, then okay, he gives us what we need. We're thankful. But when he gives us more than what we need, when he gives us a land that is precious, that is good, that is plentiful, then that shows us his love. When we say these words, we're recognizing that Hashem, by giving us the kind of land that he gave us, how much love he was expressing to us. That's how he says it. That's why we have to say it. We have to say these words to express that we recognize Hashem's love. Not just Hashem is doing what he should at some level anyway be doing, but rather he did it in a way that expresses his love for us. Rabbi Reisman expresses this idea in a very first of all, he brings it out from a pasuk, from a verse that we say in Tehillim. It's actually a verse in Hallel. We say min hametzar karasika, min hametzar. From a difficult situation, I call God. Anani b'merchavka. You have answered me b'merchav. You have answered me. Merchav means wide and open. I've called out to you from a narrow place, from a difficult place, and you have answered me in a very generous and wide open arm way. Here, it's the same idea. I'm in trouble, Rebbeinu Shalom. I need your help. You can answer me by just taking care of what I need. You can help me. You can save me. No, you didn't just save me, Rebbeinu Shalom. You answered me, responded by merchav, with wide open arms, with a bountiful response, with a plentiful response. I recognize through that you truly love me. I had expressed that I recognize that. Rabbi Reisman also points out, interestingly, how there are, even when it comes to mitzvah performance, we have a level of mitzvah performance where we do what we have to do. And then there's something called hidur mitzvah. We beautify the mitzvah. There's a concept that we do a mitzvah as soon as we can, which the term for that, the saying for that is, zrizin makdimin lemitzvahs. Those who are enthusiastic do the mitzvah right away. There are ways that we could just do a mitzvah, and there are ways that we can do mitzvah, we can do take the extra step, do with greater beauty, greater meticulousness, with doing it quick, doing it right away to show that it's important to us. When you do more when you do more than you have to do, then that shows that this is something very special to you. So when we do that extra step by a mitzvah, what we are showing is that mitzvah is very precious. We love the mitzvahs. When Hashem responds to us in a bountiful way, more than, so to speak, he has to, that also shows us his love, and we recognize that tremendous gift. And that is what lies in making sure in our obligation that we thank Hashem for the land of Israel. We say, Eretz Chemda Teivu Rachava. Not just thank you for the land, thank you for this special land. Thank you for this special gift. Thank you for the gift that we realize is more than necessary, and the sign of your love. I want to share with you another thought, and that is, after the Torah gives us the mitzvah of giving thanks to Hashem after a meal, it says, guard yourself lest you forget Hashem your God. So as not to guard his commandments, his laws, his statutes, that I command you today. Lest you eat and become satisfied. You'll build beautiful homes and settle in. Your cattle and sheep will multiply, and you will amass lots of gold and silver, and everything of yours will increase. You will receive the blessings of the world. and then your heart will become haughty. You'll forget Hashem your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt from this bondage, who led you through this great and fearful desert, filled with snakes and poisonous serpents and scorpions, a place where there's no water. But he brought you out water from a stone. That was the stone that traveled the Jewish people, from which their water was given. Who fed you the man, the food that fell from the heavens in the desert, that your forefathers did not know of. In order to afflict you, and in order to test you, to do good for you in your end. But instead you will say, my strength and the power of my hand did for me all this, made for me all this wealth. You shall remember Hashem your God, for he is the one who gives you the strength to be able to accomplish great things. In order to establish his covenant, to fulfill his covenant that he swore to your forefathers as this day. So we're warned that we're going to receive blessings, and those blessings can corrupt us. We become fat, we become rebellious, and we're supposed to remember that how did we survive in the desert? How are we able to make it through? Only because Hashem sustained us. So everything comes from Hashem. So therefore the blessings are not a reason to forget God. On the contrary, they're a reason to thank God. But this is what happens. Now, when the pasuk describes the man, it says, who fed you the man in the desert. And then the Torah tells us, Laman anoischa, in order to afflict you, in order to test you, to do good for you in your end. What does this mean? That Hashem gave us the man in order to test us, in order to afflict us. Wasn't it to sustain us? So clearly there is some other idea being presented here. And the Seforno, the commentator Seforno explains it like this. On the words of Mananoitz, in order to afflict you, Shatakayim me'oini, to see whether you will fulfill his mitzvahs out of poverty, as one who worries when he doesn't have bread in his basket. Meaning, in essence, the man could actually be very nerve-wracking. Because the man fell in the morning, they collected it, the rest of it melted. There was nothing left. There was nothing to put away in your refrigerator. Every single day, Hashem had to shower man. That could be a bit nerve-wracking. Is it going to come tomorrow? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. So in order to afflict you means that Hashem has given you the test of poverty. Because, again, they weren't lacking, but they also didn't have anything put away to know that the next day they're going to have what to eat. Then it says, Ulaman nasei secha, in order to test you. What is this referring to? Im tase ritzaynai, to see whether you'll do his will. When he gives you your livelihood without effort, without difficulty. There's another point. There's another angle here. The man, they never do anything. It just fell from the sky, and there it was. And they had what they needed to eat. So here you're being sustained. You don't have to work for it. What's that going to do to you? You know, when you're given your needs, and you're given what you need and you don't have to put any effort into it, so what do you do with your time? What do you do with yourself? What do you do when your parnasa, when your livelihood comes easy? Where does that lead you? When a person works hard, they're working hard. They don't have time to sin. But when a person has too much time on their hands, it can be problematic. If I don't need to work to make a living, I don't have to do anything to make a living. What am I doing with my time? If I don't have to work hard, I don't have to put in the effort and time for it, what am I doing with myself? That's also a test. When a person becomes too wealthy, and they really don't have to do anything in order to have to work hard in order to survive, to sustain themselves. They can sometimes, that can lead them to living a very corrupt life, because they have to fill up their time with something, and they have easy access to what to fill up their time with. That can really ruin them. So therefore, the pasuk is saying that the man was there to afflict you, to give you the test of poverty. It was there to test you, to give you the test of having a livelihood without having to work for it, wealth. Lehitivcha. For what purpose? To benefit you, to do good for you. Yois malachi asharis. The end is that you'll receive good from God, and you'll have an experience even greater than angels. Korei lemenus lefanav, which is fitting for someone who's being tested. Angels aren't tested. They don't have any tests. They have no challenges. They're clearly very close to God. They have that experience and pleasure of being close to God. But we who get challenged, and we pass the challenge, and we remain loyal to Hashem, our good will be even greater than what the angels can ever experience. So the purpose of man had a dual purpose. Now, very often, actually, there's a pasuk in Mishlei, in the book of Proverbs. Shav u'davar chazav harchek mimeni. Keep lies and false words far from me. Excuse me. Reish va'oisher al titen li. Poverty or riches don't give me. Hatrifei lechem chuki. Provide me with my daily bread. Lest being sated, I renounce saying, who is the Lord? Or I become impoverished and I take the theft. And therefore profane the name of my God. Mishlei points out that there are the challenges of wealth, there are challenges of poverty. Poverty can drive us to the wrong things. Wealth can drive us to rebel against God because we become too materialistic. And in the case of now, so a person can be poor, a person can be wealthy. In the case of the man, they were both. They had both challenged at the same time. They could have looked at the man as, what's going to be tomorrow? That was one possible test. The other test was, I don't got much to do. I don't have to work very hard for my living. It just comes to me. That can lead a person to become corrupt. And in our own lives, we can have both these things. There can be certain aspects in which we are needy, and there are certain aspects in which we are wealthy, and we don't have to put much effort into. And they both can have a negative effect on us. That was, though, the test of the man. Will you panic because I don't know what's going to be tomorrow, and that can drive a person to do things that are wrong? Or will I have something that I don't have to work much for? I become complacent. I take it for granted. And because of that, I become too materialistic. I forget about Hashem, and then I can do the things that are wrong. The man taught us. The man was a test of Hashem and a lesson to us that we will always be surrounded by these by these two challenges. And it is our challenge and lesson from man to be able to remain faithful to Hashem in all those situations. That when we're needy, we put our trust in Hashem and don't go overboard or the wrong way, take care of our needs. And that when we are blessed with plenty, they recognize that as a gift from Hashem, as Hashem's love for us. Hashem loves us even if he doesn't give us extra. But at a certain level, when you get extra, you see Hashem's love. It's like an experience of Hashem's love. We have to try to experience Hashem's love even when we don't have things. It's not as easy. But when we do have things, we have extra, that's the opportunity to really thank Hashem for this extra special gift, for this extra special kiss on our forehead. And when we do that, that is what the pasuk says, L'tivcha b'achrisecha, in order to benefit us, to reward us in a way that will merit reward and closeness to God even more than the angel experience. Have a wonderful Shabbos.